Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Skirbo here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center in Wareham, Massachusetts. So I'm looking at the second week of February. That's February 6th to February 12th, Sunday to Saturday in February 2022. I've been breaking down these monthly astrologies to weekly astrologies. And there's actually, I would probably say three things happening this week. And so three things that I want to go over in depth with you guys. So let's get started here. Let me share my screen with you. And we're going to start the slideshow. So just give me a moment here. Okay, so let's get started. So we're looking at the astrology for February 2022, the second week from February 6th to February 12th. So we do have the moon. Let me just grab my calendar here, just to give you just a general view on this week from the perspective of the moon. Of course, the moon is the quickest moving planet, so it's the most personal, really. The moon starts the week in Aries, but it does shift into Taurus on the 6th. It stays in Taurus until the 9th, when it goes into Gemini, until the 11th, when it goes into Cancer. So the moon is in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer this week. And those are the signs that sort of start the zodiac. And so there's a lot of focus on the self. There's a lot of focus on what you own, what you have, what is of value to you with the moon in Taurus. Communications, siblings, perhaps with the moon in Gemini. Gathering of information would be important. And then Cancer comes down to senses of security. How do we feel secure? Do we feel safe emotionally? Do we feel safe physically, nationally, right? So there's a lot of energy around our own sort of personal relationship to our environment. And yet we are in a lunation cycle that began with a new moon in the sign of Aquarius, and we're sort of moving through those first sort of 7 days of that. We do have the first quarter crisis and action square between the sun and the moon. So that's where we're going to start. That's on Tuesday, the 8th. And this is a important point in the chart for a number of reasons. First of all, February 8th, 2022 vibrates to a 16-7 vibration, which, as many of you know, is the Tower card. Now, the Tower card has a lot of different meanings and means different things in different situations. But really what the Tower card is a need for us or for a country, perhaps, or situation, to remember who you really are, right? Who are you really? You are a soul, right? You are connected to spirit. And what the Tower will do is it will remind us sometimes that, the what is that expression? The best laid plans of mice and men, shatter in the truth that is God, or that is spirit, or that is really our evolutionary journey. And there's going to be a lot of things I talk about that are happening on this particular day that sort of dovetail with each other. I just want to point out that the United States of America, the personal year vibration of the US from its birthday on the 4th of July, 2021, until its birthday on the day before its birthday, July 3rd in 2022, is in a personal year vibration of the 16-7. So it is a tower year for the US. It is a reckoning. And of course, we have the first of the 3 Pluto returns during this 16-7 period, and that's happening next week on the 20th of February. Our first ever for the US Pluto return. And so, we're kind of in a unique situation as the United States, because on a certain level, the idea of the US is to bring together all people of all different stripes and all different situations, many of which have come from trauma, escaping trauma, not to mention the trauma that we have perpetuated to build this country on the Native Americans, on the African slaves, and on the immigrants who have come in to make a better life. There's opportunity here, but you pay in blood, really. And so there is a reckoning of that as well at this time, which is a little out of the purview of this particular day that I'm talking about, but I think it's worth pointing out at this point, because this is a inflection point for the US. So on Tuesday the 8th, we have the first quarter moon. Now, this is the first quarter crisis in action moon of that new moon in Aquarius, right? That new moon in Aquarius conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, square Uranus in Taurus. The challenge here is to see the necessity, Taurus, for action, the nature of the square itself, to improve the lives of all the people. The sun in Aquarius, right? The sun is illuminating what needs to be looked at. The sun is at 20 degrees of Aquarius with this first quarter moon. A large white dove bearing a message, the answer of spiritual agencies to thorough, sustained, and victorious individual efforts. So this symbol really is speaking of our persistence in my estimation, in bringing the light into a situation, for bringing the messages of spirit, and a knowing that perhaps we have, as a community of human beings, the necessity for peace. Dove is a symbol of peace. The necessity of not giving up in the face of challenges. And of course, the first quarter square is a square of survival. And we have it's squaring the moon at 20 degrees of Taurus, and the Sabian symbol for 20 degrees of Taurus is wisps of wing-like clouds streaming across the sky. The keynote here is the awareness of spiritual forces at work. I have a good friend who takes pictures of clouds. She will often regale me with all her pictures of the wispy clouds that she sees, and very often there are messages in those clouds. And so we need to look up. Today here it's overcast and raining, so the only thing I see when I look up is gray, and I get wet. But if you have an opportunity on this day, especially, to look up to the clouds and see what the heavens are telling us. But both of these symbols, interestingly enough, have this energy of otherworldly help, otherworldly aid. And so we are facing a very scary time in a way, as the old crumbles away. So do the old ways of doing things. And I think here in America, and of course this is this Pluto return, so this has to do with that. We've always sort of gone in a particular direction when it comes to when we get challenged. And I think that we need to have the faith that doing it in a different way is going to bring the kind of results that we want. Okay, so on the same day, we have Mars trine Uranus. Now, this is particularly interestingly placed in the sort of current energies and current history of the US. And I don't mean to keep, pounding on the United States as, the crucible for the world or whatever. I don't actually know what a crucible is, so I might have said that wrong. But it is, people are waiting and waiting to see what happens here, especially with all of this, tumultuousness in the Ukraine, and NATO and Russia and, the old lines sort of, usually America, if somebody is trying to exert itself, America will just crush it, crush it before it has an opportunity. A lot of times it's out of fear of actually looking at the other person's point of view or the other country's point of view. But that is, that's something that a child, that you do when you don't have the understanding. Like you see a bug, you smash it. You don't realize that it has a place in the grand scheme of nature. And while you may find it ugly or repellent, it does serve its purpose and serve its function. I mean, that's just an example of, the difference between somebody who understands the nature of the bug and that which just finds the outer, persona of the bug, or the outer skin of the bug to be repellent without really understanding why. So it's really, if we want to talk about being a place where all differences, e pluribus unum, out of the many, the one, we have to start walking our walk. We're having our first Pluto return. And so those things that the United States are based on, which may actually not be the things that you think they were based on. I mean, after all, Pluto in Capricorn in the second house, at least in the Sibley chart, indicates, power around ownership and the sort of power over dynamic and the sort of land grab that was America. I mean, one of the reasons America became a power, and maintains to be a power, is because of the amount of space that it has to work with, internally. And yet the West has, go west, young man, we've gone west. And a lot of people are coming back from the West, right? How many people are leaving California because they can't afford it, because of the fires or for whatever reason? So there's a different, we've sort of filled it up. And now we have to sort of look at, what that meant. And, the history is important. And it has to be a history of the people, and it has to be a history of the truth. And we can see what's happening in the, out there in the world with book burnings and, trying to change history and, not say, critical race theory and all this stuff, because, we do have a shadow, and some of us don't want to see the shadow, because within the shadow are those people who don't want us to see the shadow. So it will come out, whether we want to see it or not. And so if you see it and you embrace it and you understand it and you heal it, it becomes the light that we shine. It becomes the light that we shine. The United States of America's shadow is a 32/5. It's the same vibration as the word freedom. And it is the path of life of the US, if you go by the 1776 chart, July 4th, 1776. And so we have come in to heal and to come to understand and be a light in what true freedom means. And how can we really say we are the experts on freedom if we're, first of all, the country with the most prisons and imprisoned people. How can we say that we are, let freedom ring if we, don't face our history with slavery or face our history with the genocide of the Native Americans? All of those things need to be looked at, need to be understood. And our children have the right to know about that stuff, but in a way that there's an understanding and not a pointing of fingers. Okay, so we have this Mars trine Uranus at 11 of Capricorn Taurus. Trines bring a free flow of energy from Uranus, the awakener, to Mars, the planet of action. And so this energy is an energy of action, and it can be action based on illumination or awakening, or it can be action based on chaos and creating chaos, because Uranus is a very chaotic energy. In fact, we've come to understand that after having Donald Trump as president for 4 years, because his nature is Uranian. He has his sun conjunct his north node, conjunct Uranus in the 10th house in his chart. He has been the awakener. He has shook us loose from our sleep, both showing us the horrors of who we can be and also, questioning authority. He has questioned authority. Why do I have to give up my life for a country? That's silly. I just want to get what I want to get, And so while we do need to have a sense of service to one another, we have to make sure it's service to one another, and it's going to help us and it's going to aid us. And it's not just going to be us going out there and, taking over places, not for the American people, but for corporations, because we do live in a plutocracy, right? And that's coming out full force with this Pluto return. So this can be a sudden breakout of war. Mars in Capricorn. Mars is very powerful in Capricorn. Uranus is at 11 degrees of Taurus. And the saving symbol for 11 degrees of Taurus is a woman watering flowers in her garden. Development of the powers of the mind on which ego consciousness is based. We've seen this symbol over and over again, because 11 degrees of Taurus, just like 15 degrees of Taurus in the summer last year, are 2 degrees that are being activated, because this is where Uranus is changing direction. And so Uranus is already this disruptive force, where in those degrees where it changes direction, those issues keep coming up, and you can apply the Sabian symbol there as well if you happen to have a planet at 15 degrees of Taurus or 11 degrees of Taurus, or in between those points. We know that that part of your chart is being activated. It's trine 11 degrees of Capricorn, a large group of pheasants on a private estate. The refinement and propagation of aristocratic values by means of which man participates in the evolution of life towards ever more perfect forms of existence. This image shows us how man can cooperate with nature, creating beauty and elegance by capitalizing on skill and opportunity. The key word here is aristocracy. So in this symbol of Mars lies our ability to work with nature to make the world a more beautiful and ordered place. Now that's a whole different view, right, on this trine, this possibility of this trine. This is a disseminating trine, a trine of social rewards that was seated at the previous Mars-Uranus conjunction, which incidentally occurred back on January 20th, 2020, which was Inauguration Day. 2021, I'm sorry, it's January 20th, 2020. Is it 2021? It doesn't say. 2020. No, it was 2020. I'm sorry, it wasn't Inauguration Day. Hold on, I gotta check this. I gotta check my thing here. Sorry. Okay, I did look back. I was right, 2021. Um, so if we look at, just pretend that's a one, if we look at this, January 20th was a 21, 2021 was a 5, a 26-8 vibration, right? So this is about, 8 is about, as you sow, so shall you reap. It's also the uh, page of wands in the tarot. And so there's a message here for us, is there not? So this occurred at 7 degrees of Taurus. At 7 degrees of Taurus, a woman of Samaria at the ancestral well, the meeting of the traditional past and the creative spirit pointing to the future. So this says to us that we need to have both the past in mind and also a vision for a different future, an opportunity to do it differently. This was Inauguration Day of 2021. So this is a very powerful point. And it was incidentally the inauguration of the 46th president. 46 vibrates to a 1. It is the 6 of cups. It's in Tippereth in the tree of life, in the heart chakra, the place where we find harmony through conflict, the place where the divine feminine and the divine masculine meet, the place of the Star of David or the Merkaba or the 6-pointed star. The core and the center of the tree of life, the one that sits there in our heart, connected with our inner child and our need for love and nurturance. Also associated with Scorpio, the sign of Scorpio, which of course the South Node is in Scorpio. And if we look at this trine, and this is a trine, I did pull this chart for the US, mainly because of the situation we find ourselves in. But if you look here, we have Mars here at 11 degrees of Capricorn, trining Uranus at 11 degrees of Taurus. When you look at the relationship between two planets like this, the slower moving planet, which in the case of this combination is Uranus, is in a disseminating trine. The disseminating trine has the energy of Sagittarius, the big picture, understanding, an ability to learn from one another if we allow for it. It's always a choice. We can choose chaos or we can choose understanding. Either way, we're going to come to a point of understanding. It's just how messy is it going to be? Okay, let's go on. Friday, the 11th of February. Now, I realize I just jumped from Tuesday to Friday. What's going on all in between? Well, all of this I've talked about. And remember the moon's moving through the more personal signs. So we're going to be seeing world events and sort of how they resonate within our own sense of our own security, our own sense of self, our own, it'll really be hard not to take things personally this week because the moon is in the most personal of signs. It's actually moving through the personal area of the chart. There's really nothing more personal than, Aries to Cancer. That's where we're developing our sense of who am I, right? What do I value? And who are these people around me? Who am I? What am I communicating? What information can I gather? And where is my family? Those are sort of the questions that the moon and those signs will ask. So you can find yourself asking those in the backdrop and the background of great energetic shifts, certainly, and geopolitical shifts. We also have the Olympics this week, right? The Olympics are still going on, so that's very interesting. We could use this energy to come to understand each other better, couldn't we, though? February 11th vibrates to an 18.9. I bring that up because on that day we have Mercury conjunct Pluto at 28 degrees of Capricorn. 28 degrees of Capricorn is the degree of the Pluto in the United States. This is actually the third of 3 exact conjunctions between Pluto and Mercury. Pluto and Mercury is a deep dive. Pluto is the underworld. Mercury is the only god that could go down to the underworld, go in and out of the underworld freely, because, Mercury was the messenger of the gods. And so what is Mercury telling you? What information are you getting from your own Mercury? The first one of these conjunctions occurred on December 30th, 2021 at 26 degrees of Capricorn. That vibration was a 4711 vibration. That is found in Netzach in the Tree of Life. Netzach is associated with the planet Venus, our values, what's important to us. At the time of this, this conjunction, I believe Venus was retrograde already. Let me just double check. Yeah, Venus was retrograde. So a rethinking of our values, a rethinking of, Venus in Capricorn, money, who's in charge, who has say. You remember this is when we were trying to get things passed, and Joe Manchin and Cinema were blocking things all up and down the kazoo there because they have moneyed interests, and they are not really representing West Virginia and Arizona. They're representing the moneyed interest, but that's the way politics works. And until we get money out of politics, that's not going to change. So we do need some big changes, and part of that is the taking the power away from the large corporations and starting to put some of that money into building infrastructure and social structures and educational structures. All the big things have to be transformed, and that's really what Pluto return is asking us to do. Pluto in Capricorn is about the destruction and reconstruction of the parameters of our consciousness. The old systems will not hold the new consciousness, but the old systems based on new consciousness will hold. And so in that respect, I think democracy will hold. I do. I just think it's going to take a lot of work, and we're going to have to see about getting the mighty have to fall, and that's happening as well, and we'll see that happen in different ways. Nothing's going to stop evolution, folks. Nothing's going to stop evolution. The question is, how much pain do we have to endure before we let go, let God guide us, and let our own souls lead the way? The second conjunction occurred on January 28th, 2022, which is a 35.8 vibration at 27 degrees of Capricorn. The 35.8 is the 9 of Wands. It's associated with the sign of Sagittarius. If you use the Sibley chart, the United States is a Sagittarius-ruled sign. If you look to where the ruler of Sagittarius was at that time, it's in Pisces. And in fact, the progressed sun of the US is in Pisces. I think it's about 17 degrees Pisces. And so we're going to have Jupiter coming over that, and close enough to the Neptune Jupiter conjunction, occurring at like 24 degrees of Pisces, to bring in that Piscean energy to us as Americans, I guess. For those of you who are watching who are Americans, the 18-9 vibration is the moon card. It is the sign associated with Pisces. And of course, I just talked about Pisces. And if you look at this chart to the right, where we have this last Mercury Pluto conjunction, we have Neptune and Jupiter both in Pisces. The promise of healing, the promise of compassion. What do we have to do to realize that we are not each other's enemies? What do we have to go through? A pandemic wasn't enough. An insurrection wasn't enough. If we look at this chart, there's something very interesting occurring. Here we have Mercury now direct, right? Conjunct Pluto. This is a chart for the US. It is in the 10th house of the president. We also have Venus and Mars up here. They will, in 2 days, make a conjunction at, I think, 17 degrees of Capricorn. As I see this, actually, in the chart for the US, this is an opportunity for, I believe, the president and the vice president to have a strong sort of vision and idea for where we need to go. We have the North Node here trine this, and it's in the 2nd house for the US, whereas the South Node is in the 8th house. This is the letting go point. This would be a perfect opportunity to, I think, to discharge the debt for student loans. This could be a discharge the debt for student loans kind of thing happening here. It's a possibility of way it can express itself. Of course, we also have to sort of look at the fact that we have the god of war and the god of death up here in that 10th house. We could also utilize this energy to gain land, or to gain money, or to gain something here. So there's a lot of ways that this can sort of manifest itself, but ultimately, because it's a conjunction, it is asking us to think deeply about these issues. What is it that we need to look at? If we look at Pluto and Mercury here, it actually makes a sextile to the south node of the moon and a yod to the moon in Gemini. The moon in Gemini at 25 degrees. That is very close to the Mars of the United States. The Mars of the United States. The moon in a mundane chart, which this is because it's a chart of an event, is the people. There is a sort of connection to the past here, but also a connection to the future. And in some ways, the past is informing the future. And the people are getting squeezed here. And, the moon in Gemini can be, further getting into their corners. But ultimately, we're going to have to work together. Ultimately, we're going to have to realize that in order to survive and thrive, we're going to have to love one another. I've said this over and over again, and every time I look at these charts and I get the messages that I get, these are the messages that I get. So I guess what I want to say is what's going to happen is going to happen. We don't have a whole lot of control over this as far as our influence on the outer, on the things in the outer world. The things in the outer world are trying to show us, though, where we need to focus on in our own lives, in our own ability, and where we do have power. And when we realize the power that we have, and then we bring it together with others who've realized the power that they have, then we can change the world in an instant. They want us to think it's hard. They want us to think that that's just pie in the sky. There's no way that could happen. But I don't believe that. I believe we have a lot of power to move us in the direction of love, because love is the greatest power. It's the greatest healer. We don't have to live this way anymore, folks. We don't. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. What, 3 things happened, and I think I've had you for an hour. What can I tell you? I think this stuff is important, so I want to put it out there for you. Hopefully you find it helpful and understanding. If you would like a reading with me, you can go to my website, theseedsoftransformation.com. There will be links below. I am going to be doing a Kabbalah class in March. As soon as I decide the days and how I'm going to organize it, as far as how many weeks it's going to go. It'll probably be a 6-week course, but I actually might make it an 8-week course, because the information is so intense that we may need those extra 2 weeks to integrate some of what we learned through the Kabbalah. So if you might be interested in that, you can always email me. But I think, yeah, you could email me, Victoria Skirbo, same way as it's spelled on the channel, at gmail.com. If you want to be put on a list or something like that for the Kabbalah. And I have maybe I can do a waiting list for that. I'm going to have to talk to my IT guy. All right, guys, take care. Much love, and I'll see you next week. And next week's a doozy, because of course we have the Pluto return next week, don't we? Oh no, it's not. It's the next week. Ah, okay. Well, we got plenty happening next week. Take care. I love you all. Namaste.